So welcome to everybody to this live session, this live hustings for the Tunbridge Wells Borough Council local elections to be held in 3 weeks' time. Thank you all for tuning in either live or listening later on YouTube. Mark, are there any housekeeping rules we need to talk about just before we kick off?
No, nothing from my end. Should be good to go. Okay,
very good. So I'm just going to start by introducing a little bit about the session, and then we'll get going. Because my daughter's parents are so mean, she's having to do some tutoring. So this session is she has to record her sessions in case anybody wants to listen in afterwards. We're doing the same thing, and we're hoping that even if there aren't many people listening tonight, we're hoping that in the coming few days and weeks, people will come and listen to you all. So be careful what you say. A brief word about the town forum. You'll know that it's a non-political body or a non-party political body, and we prize our neutral status. Now, while we recognise that the borough elections are party political, but please, if you can, make sure your remarks are relevant to the local borough elections, and particular to the town of Royal Tunbridge Wells. So most of you are standing in wards in the unparished part of Tunbridge Wells. I'm going to assume that if elected, you will attend our regular meetings. If you're not, then you're still very welcome anyway. I think people who come often say how refreshing they find the debate compared with the debate in the full council of the borough council, where it's we like to think we're a friendly and thoughtful bunch. So last year was the first time that the town forum hosted such an event as this, and I was slightly confused as to why we actually had two separate events. And of course, it turns out there was both the borough council elections, which have been deferred from the previous year due to COVID, and of course the county elections. Now this year we just had one evening, and as such, I'm going to assume that each of you is going to speak not just on your own behalf, but on behalf of your colleagues in other wards. I exclude Shannon from that remark because he's the only one standing for his party. So to the main business, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and the main issues on which you're campaigning. So maximum 2 minutes, please. Then I've got a series of questions here, which I'm going to ask you in turn, and I'll try and vary who we speak to first. And you will, of course, have the opportunity to respond to statements from the others if you wish. And then right at the end, we'll have a short 1 minute summary. So I'm going to just go around in order of the people I see on the screen at the moment. And Tom Dawlings, you are up first because I can see you top left. So please, your introductory statement.
I'm in the middle and on my screen. But thank you, Adrian. I'm Tom Dawlings. I'm present the leader of Tunbridge Wells Borough Council. I've been leader since last May, and I've been in the cabinet since May 2019. I think my party has 5 main priorities. The delivery of council services is what we do and why the council exists. The local economy, this is crucial for employment and for the well-being of residents of our town and borough. The climate emergency, we've identified our carbon emissions substantially from our properties. So we're doing all we can to reduce these emissions with improved insulation, LED lighting, air source heating, and we have a carbon descent plan to monitor and report on progress. Housing and the protection of the area of outstanding natural beauty. Fundamentally, this is what the local plan the council has been working on for several years is all about. And finally, the homeless and the refugees. In the course of the pandemic, we had the Everyone In programme, which was to accommodate rough sleepers. And we've created some accommodation for former rough sleepers in the town. We have accommodated previously Syrian and Afghan refugees, and now on a far larger scale, coordinating accommodation and support for the Ukrainian refugees. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, we have Shannon.
Hello there. As stated, my name is Shannon Kennedy, standing on behalf of the Socialist Party of Great Britain. Compared with the rest of the candidates here, I may be a relative unknown in Tunbridge Wells, so I'd quickly state that I've lived in Tunbridge Wells for the past 6 years and have previously attended nursery in Tunbridge Wells during those years. The party standing currently on for putting the values of the people ahead of what profit might establish. This perhaps later on the questions would refer to the local town centre with the ABC cinema. And we'd prefer to that the electorate are given a greater say on local matters, such as that where my vote, being a single candidate in this election of the borough, would go towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Next up, we have Ben Chapelard.
Hello, everyone. My name's Ben Chapelard. By day, I'm a French and Spanish teacher, and by night, I'm a Liberal Democrat councillor for St James's. I live in St James's with my wife and our 2 sons who go to the local schools. I'm also leader of the opposition on Tunbridge Wells Borough Council. And thanks for the invitation. And I look forward to talking to you about what we want to do for Tunbridge Wells, which is to have a town centre that we can all be proud of. And I look forward to discussing that in more detail in the evening.
Thank you, Ben. Next up, we have Mike Tapp.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, my name is Mike Tapp. I live in St John's Ward, and that's where I am standing to be a Labour councillor. I currently work for the Labour Party in Parliament, but I come from a background of service, really. So I've served with the Intelligence Corps in Iraq and Afghanistan in the Army. Following that, I worked for the National Crime Agency, where I was putting gangsters away in prison. And then I focused on counter-terrorism operations. And now I'm looking to continue that service, really, for the people of St John's and obviously Tunbridge Wells. As I think a lot of my friends know, I'm particularly proud of my service, which is why I brought it up. And I would like to be sort of proud of the town as well, and I think that's the same with all Labour councillors and candidates. And really, we're asking is where's the pride from the current administration in the town? Because there's certainly no pride in the empty shops or the overflowing bins and potholes and the road chaos that we're seeing. And there's absolutely no pride in the queues that we're seeing at the food banks in our town. So if you elect Labour councillors, then you'll get candidates who will proudly serve you and save the town from the decline, really. In St John's, I'll be focused on driving progress forward. So I'll be pushing for solutions where there's antisocial behaviour hotspots like the St John's Rec. I'll study and explore realistic parking solutions for residents, push for electric charging points, and of course, work with other councillors to save our town centre from decline that we're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And next we have Adrian Thorne.
Hello, I'm Adrian Thorne from the Green Party. I'm standing in Broadwater. Lived in Tunbridge Wells for 20 years, partner, daughter and dog. I've been a professional gardener for over 12 years now and have a thriving little business in the area, which we're rather proud of. And recently just finished a master's in horticulture with the dissertation being on climate change and its effects. So that is obviously something that's been forefront in my thinking. The 2 areas that I'm very much interested in and has sort of brought me to this point of standing for election are protecting our green space, and that's been, forefront. There is the huge imposition on Broadwater that we're suffering and the loss of our biodiversity and fields. And secondly, holding the council towards their climate declaration commitments. I spent quite a while on, sending various emails, etc., social media, trying to get some progress with that with the cabinet, but it's been frustrating. So I decided the best thing to do is to stand and see if we can change it. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And last but not least, Nick Pope.
Good evening. Yes, so I'm Nick Pope. I'm the current councillor for Park Ward in Tunbridge Wells, the first Alliance councillor on the Borough Council, and I'm coming up to the completion of my first 4 years. So I'm up for re-election or seeking re-election. The Alliance is, or Tunbridge Wells Alliance for its full name, is the local party funded by residents seeking to do well, the best or right thing for residents and the town and our local community, or the borough. There are lots of things we're interested in. Is basically, I guess it's down to improving the way the council operates, improving the contracts. There's a number of large major contracts we have, such as the waste collections, improving those, improving the way they're procured, and also making sure that developments are appropriate for their setting and wherever they are. We are very keen at backing the Tunbridge Wells Town Centre plan, which I think is very important for Royal Tunbridge Wells, and something we've been pushing for the last 4 years. The last one ceased or was terminated in 2012, so it's good to be picking it up and actually moving forwards on that again. Meanwhile use is probably something that would fall into that. That's about that potentially, if we push through that as a planning policy, that would give us more powers, or the council more powers, to get some kind of temporary use on the cinema site. We also want to improve engagement with residents and public consultation. And there's a whole heap more, but that's probably an introduction. Thank you.
Very good, Nick. You forestalled one or two of my questions, so that's fine. So we're gonna start with the town centre, and really just sort of a general question as to what do you think we need to do in the town centre, and if you'd like to include in your remarks and thoughts about the town centre area plan or the town centre action plan. I'm never quite sure which it is. That'd be helpful as well. So I'm going to start with Shannon, and just tell us a bit about what you think needs to be done in the town centre.
Well, I remember when I was first in Tunbridge Wells, when it was operational. You know, I've been there, so I remember what it was like, and I've seen it in the intervening years between living here now and then. So I've seen it dilapidated as well in a run-down state. We've seen that. I mean, it's been 22 years now, coming on 23, that we simply cannot rely on the current private finance to try and deal with these issues. It's been left to them, and the only reason that it was demolished in the first place, I believe, was because the council forced legal action, or threatened legal action at least, if they did not do so. So what we need to do, I believe, what our party believes, is that the general public needs to be given the opportunity to present their ideas, and the council should perhaps go through with the most popular one, be it taking in the form of an acquisition, the council taking it on themselves to deal with this, or any other means. But currently, as it stands, we cannot rely on, say, the current group, which is a retirement home group, I believe, that with AXA. We don't know if that will pass through or not, depending on what they've gone through, the amount that have failed in the past. I mean, we've got to remember that this stands above the rail line as well, so we can't dig down, I suppose, too far. That would have repercussions. But no, certainly we need greater input from the general public, not relying on the current political system that we have that has allowed this to happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Shannon. I'll come to Ben next. Ben, please, if you want to talk about the cinema site, that's fine. That was going to be my next question, actually, so we can take that as one. But please, if you can think about, so not just the cinema site, but the wider town centre as well.
Thank you. So we want a town centre that we're proud of as residents, and we're focused on the 3 Fs, if you like. We want friends and family to be attracted to come to Tunbridge Wells to have fun, so that you could talk to your friends who don't live in the area and say, come to Tunbridge Wells, at the weekend, and you're going to have a fantastic time having fun in Tunbridge Wells. At the moment, we feel that we don't have enough of a pull towards Tunbridge Wells. So if you walk up from the Pantiles is very much a vibrant part of the town, and I think that is a reflection of an amazing group of local businesses. The Pantiles traders that have done a really good job at promoting the area. As you walk through Chapel Place, we've got some amazingly specialised shops. The high street is really buzzing, again, with some very specific shops for specific types of customers that are destinations in their own place, if you know, antiques, those kind of things. So I think as you move up past the train station, it gets quieter and quieter, and at the top of town, it has got a very different feel. So we want to focus on making our residents feel proud of their town centre, would be our first priority. One of the things we have to do is we have to rejuvenate the top end of town, because it feels like the Mary Celeste with very little going on for it. What we've got to do, how we do it, is we've got to recognise that we are now competing with something that we are unable to beat, and that's the internet. The internet is fundamentally changing the way people shop, people come into towns, and we're not going to beat the Amazons. And I'm sure some of us listening today have had a delivery van come to us, or to a neighbours or someone else in our street who've bought the products, who are taking away sales and jobs in Tunbridge Wells. So we have to offer something different to the internet, so that people have a reason to come into Tunbridge Wells. And that's really what we want to do as Liberal Democrats. And I think, you know, one of our main ideas is that we've had a market in Tunbridge Wells, which has been in the wrong place, either in front of the town hall or at Market Square behind RVP. That needs to be brought into Calverley Precinct, and it needs to be increased. It needs to be cater for lots of different incomes, lots of different produce, and it's got to be as buzzing as the market in Tunbridge that does a roaring trade at the weekend. So that would be our first measure to rejuvenate that top end of town.
Okay.
And
thanks,
I'm
Ben.
happy to go into more detail about it
sure.
later.
Thank you. Okay. Mike, how would you rejuvenate the top end of town, or the bottom end, whichever you like?
Thanks. Well, firstly, what a tragedy it is that we even are talking about having to rejuvenate our wonderful town. And there's no doubt that that's down to 2 decades of Conservative complacement, really. And even Conservative MPs visiting the town have commented on that. So it's an absolute embarrassment, and we shouldn't have to avoid areas of our town centre. Now, Labour are really clear on what we'd do to rejuvenate. So firstly, we'd attract more people into the town centre. So we need more markets of lots of different variations: food markets, farmers markets, craft fairs, and that can be spread all the way uptown. It doesn't have to just be in the Pantiles. Pop-ups. So there's lots of empty shops. Why can't they be made available for small businesses, new businesses, or people coming into the town to set up for short periods of times? And that's something we'd certainly look at doing. And then when it comes to footfall and getting people in, there's no doubt that pedestrianising certain areas can do that. We've seen it in areas of London and many other towns across the country. On the high street, we could pedestrianise the middle section and allow access at either end, and that will bring a lot of business into the shops there, and just make it more vibrant. On the cinema site, I mean, you know, come on, do we need another retirement village? Really? That's all that seems to be being built around the town. So perhaps normal housing with shopping areas there would suffice, and certainly a sort of meanwhile use of a nice park, rather than just leaving it like it is, as it has been for 20 years. And on the internet, I think we can beat the internet. We just got to be creative. No, we're not going to compete directly with Amazon, but if we do all the things that I've just talked about, then people will come to the town and businesses will thrive. And then finally, we need to keep it clean.
Right. Adrian, what do you think? What would be the green solution?
Well, I mean, I'd echo very much what other people says, that it's a real shame that it's come down to this. It is a state. It really is a shame. My opinion, I would agree with Shannon to a certain extent. We need public involvement in this. Some of you will know that I'm a big fan of citizens' assemblies for large decisions. And this was a large decision. It's the heart of our town. So why don't we have an assembly and get people in, get them involved, get experts involved and get their views? Perhaps if we'd have done this earlier, perhaps if we'd have done this before Calverley Square, you wouldn't have had the mess where everyone throws their arms up because they weren't involved and they weren't listened to. So that would be my major point. Have a good, proper public engagement, citizens' assembly. Personally, I think we're going to see a more localised future in the town. I think people are voting with their feet. I have a lot of sentimentality for the old days of 40 years ago when my folks would ship us off on a Saturday afternoon in the car, and you do all your shopping, but in large stores. But I suspect that those days may be gone now, as cars become slowly less popular and we become more local, etc. We may see a changing high street. So we need to sit everyone down and find out what they want that high street to be, rather than us lot telling them. Thanks.
Thank you, Adrian. And Nick, do you agree with what you've heard so far, or are there other things which the Tunbridge Wells Alliance would like to be doing?
I agree. I agree with quite a lot of what's been said. I think the idea of a market on Calverley Road pedestrian precinct is something that we've been working with some of the other parties on to try and progress that. But that road actually is looking very tired. It's a mishmash of paving stones patched in with tarmac. It really needs a revamp, and some of the street furniture is looking rather sad as well. So I think there are a number of things we need to focus on improving on the small things and tidying up the town. And this doesn't have to be incredibly expensive, but it's about, if sometimes I go to towns and you think, wow, this place looks wonderful. I wander around Tunbridge Wells and part of me thinks actually it's a really good town, and then I look at some of the street furniture and think, what's happened here? We haven't done anything. So yes, I agree with a lot of that. Also, I think something we probably need is on new buildings that are going up. We probably need more controls on the scale and design of them to ensure that they complement the historic buildings, so that the town doesn't lose its character. What we don't want is Tunbridge Wells to become just a cookie cutter town that looks like anywhere else. And that trying to get some temporary use on the cinema site, I think, will be key until construction starts. There's no guarantee it'll start in the next 2 years. So let's try and get some temporary use there so that it becomes maybe an attraction of some sort rather than somewhere to be avoided. I think some other things that are also getting better facilities for the younger generations in town. That's more the teenagers. And I know some of us have been working on things like skate parks. I was working on trying to get a pop-up skate park in one of the empty units, but that hasn't gone ahead. But I think we need to keep coming up with ideas and trying to make the town more interesting for all age groups. I've probably come to the end. There is no doubt.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you, Nick. So Tom, you and your party have been in charge for most of this time, and I think you're getting the flak for some of this. So what's your response to what's been said so far?
Well, town centres are changing. No doubt about that. Retail is moving from the high street to offline, to online. The town centre area plan is now being worked on. It was only held in abeyance whilst work was being done on the local plan, and that is hugely focused on where the town centre should go, what should be done. Now, I think in a lot of ways, the Pantiles is a success story. I think the change in the high street is another success story. Helped by funding through active travel. The difficulty is, as everyone's identified, as you get to the top of the town, which is really focused on the bigger national retailers, many of whom went bust in the COVID pandemic, or some a little bit before. Yeah, I mean, there was a reference to Conservative MP coming round. I walked round the town with the then Secretary of State, and he actually described part of the Calverley precinct as this could be Newcastle under Lyme. Yeah, you know, we were standing outside BHS, boarded up. We were looking at other boarded up premises. It was pretty sad. Also, I started looking at the tarmac around trees, and very sad. And so the next week I walked around there with Kent County Council highways person who's responsible for these things, and tried to explain the priorities that I saw that we actually needed Kent County Council to address. Now, lots of things I think are happening. There is a buyer for the cinema site. It's never been in the council's ownership. Not my judgment as to whether it's the right buyer or the wrong buyer. But I think that the town centre is going to increasingly be a more balance between leisure and residential, and this provides some element of residential. And it is not a closed community, but an open community, and therefore I'm rather encouraged by it. On the BHS side, there's a buyer there that is seeking to change it into a leisure complex, and I think that that provides the sort of a little bit more of the variety that I think we're looking for. And the other thing that's going to happen on the top of the town, opening next week, after many years of planning, is of course the Amelia Scott, which is planned to bring quite a lot of footfall to the town. And I think I've been around it several times in the course of the fit out, and I think it's looking like a wonderful building, and some of the fit out is really exciting. And the final change that should happen is the letting out of part of the town hall for co-working and small business startups. This is a project that we've been working on cross-party now for some time, and that will bring more footfall and I think huge benefit to the local economy.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone want to come back on any of those points? I can see that Mike's got his hand up, but if anybody else wants to say something, just put your hand up.
Thanks, Adrian. I don't know whether to be sort of delighted that Tom is accepting that there's a problem, or thoroughly frustrated and angry that it's not being dealt with. This is due to 2 decades of complacency, and rather than just waiting for buyers in the new times and new challenges that we're facing, we need enthusiasm and creativity to overcome the problems, which is exactly what I was talking about earlier. So I have to say to those watching that on the 5th of May, there is an opportunity to get the Conservatives out so that we can have some creativity and enthusiasm to fix the problems quickly.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And we've heard a bit about the cinema side. We've heard a bit about the fact there's going to be the co-working arrangements in the town hall. What are your perspectives on the proposed co-working arrangements? I'm going to come to Ben first.
Liberal Democrats are very supportive of the co-working. It brings in a building, and it in essence, it increases its life use of that building. It just shows, with a little bit of creativity, what can be done in Tunbridge Wells, rather than spend £111 million on a theatre to try and compete with London's Theatreland. So we're very supportive of it. I think it will be a great addition to the town. It will bring footfall into the town centre, which is very much what we need. You know, towns are going to change, and actually the problem we've probably got in Tunbridge Wells at the moment is we've got too much retail space to compete with the internet, which is why these properties are staying empty for so long. And what we need to do as part of the action plan for the town centre is look at that balance between residential on the one hand and retail, and changing that so that we have got a unique offer which attracts people and makes people proud of their town centre.
Okay, thanks. Adrian, town hall, the co-working. What are your thoughts on that?
Yep, it sounds like quite a sensible way to deal with a difficult situation at the moment. I'm all in favour of keeping the town hall, essentially publicly owned, and if we have to rent out space to do it, then that seems the obvious short-term solution. Thanks a lot.
Okay, and Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, so I'm completely in favour of the council retaining town hall and renting out the spare space for co-working, and in fact that's something we were pushing as an alternative to the Cavalier Square project. So I think, particularly with the Amelia Scott about to open next door, the selling of the town hall would have been a mistake. The civic block should remain in the hands of the council and can be used for the community and for local businesses. I guess the next thing we need to focus on is the Assembly Hall Theatre and what we do with that, and take that forward for the future.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Anybody else want to make any more comments about the co-working? I think we've got lots of agreement about it at the moment. If anybody else wants to add anything else, well, can I come back? Yeah, of course,
Adrian. Can I come back? I mean, I think that 20 years of decline is a little bit rich as a comment. I think the town centres have been changing. They've been changing a lot. The council has been in no position to buy up these premises, and there has to be a plan. That's what the whole point of the town centre area plan is, to get a balance between what the town centre ought to be delivering. And I think it will be a little bit more residential. It will be, a few more restaurants. It will be a little bit more leisure activity. And I think this also is because, you want people to live and work, which is the point of the co-working in the town hall, and be able to go out on foot, not requiring cars. That's the direction that things are going in, and I'm sure that's that will be the findings in much more detail of the town centre area plan.
Adrian.
Thanks. I mean, Tom says he's sure that's the direction he's going in, but what are you doing to encourage that? Where's the evidence of you pushing that forward? I mean, we see your colleagues telling us the glass is half full and we should be happy, but when everyone else, it's quite clearly isn't the case that we should be. But I'm just not feeling there's any sort of leadership towards this. I know Tories are very much the party of laissez-faire, but where's the drive? Where's the direction?
Do you want me to come back on that?
Yeah, sure. Please do.
I'm not quite sure what the questions give for. I mean, if we're talking about climate and carbon emissions, we can talk about what the council's actually doing in that. Where's the drive and direction? what I would suggest that the Amelia Scott is a thoroughly good example of you know, a lot of coordination to try and create something that is going to bring people into the town centre, is going to be a draw for people coming into Tunbridge Wells. You know, I'm not really quite sure what the point of the criticism was.
I think Mike would like to say what the point of the criticism was.
Sorry, Adrian, steal your thunder. I hope I'm right here, but I think what Adrian's probably calling for is a bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of creativity and some fight from the Conservatives. It seems like there's just acceptance and there's no real leadership making things happen. And I think that's why the public are so angry at this, as are we as people that love the town.
Ben?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm now on my 5th Conservative council leader since I became a councillor in 2010. When I became a councillor back then, there were 44 Conservative councillors to 4 Liberal Democrats, just to put it in context. And I think, to be fair to Tom, whichever political party's in charge with large majorities up and down the country, it does breed a certain complacency. And the reason why the cinema site is actually being cleared of what used to be called the Grot Spot, the Pigeon Palace, those kind of things, is because the Liberal Democrats went and did a petitioning the council for it to use its statutory powers, which is called a Section 215 order, to clear up that site. And 22,000 people in the borough signed our petition, 15,000 of which were from Tunbridge Wells town. And that meant that the council then had to come step up their game and actually deliver on some sort of improvement. And that was why the cinema site was cleared with the demolition order, which I had a look round while they were demolishing. I think complacency of large majority, whichever colour is in power, is that kind of which is part of the problem. What the cinema site did was force the council to use its statutory powers that it hadn't at the top. And I remember specifically a former Kent County councillor coming up to me at one of our stalls saying to me, "Ben, well done. Now you're forcing our lot to do something about the cinema site." And I think that's a complacency issue. We're now in no overall control. With the Conservatives running a minority administration, May, as has been said before, is an opportunity to change that direction. And if I become the council leader in May, after the local elections, then you will see a lot more impetus, energy, drive, ambition, direction for our town.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So we've heard the word town centre talked about a lot. We've heard the words, the contract for the co-working is going to be with Town Square Limited. The building itself is actually called the Town Hall. Is it now time for a town councillor? Now time for a town council. I'm going to ask Mike this. What do you think?
I think a town council is a very good idea. It really focuses efforts then on sorting this out. I think Labour councillors, anywhere they are in the town, whichever ward they're elected in, will obviously look at making the town centre one of their priorities and helping to sort that out. But if you have a town centre council, then the focus is solely on that. And personally, I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Adrian, what's your view?
I am in favour of the more public engagement, the better. Absolutely, as long as it's done properly. It's not the usual faces. It needs to have a degree of why are you smiling, Nick? It needs to have a degree of accountability to it, with proper expert help backing it up. But yeah, absolutely, the more public involvement, the better, definitely.
Nick, you were smiling there. What's the smile about?
I was smiling at the comment about the usual faces. So I'm not quite sure precisely what that means. But yeah, I mean, well, as with anything, they're probably a relatively small group who are involved in town councils and the borough council. I think Southborough Borough Council, there are a number who sit on both. I know the town forum is trying to fill the gap where we don't have a town council, but of course it has no powers. It has some influence, and the town council would provide more focus on the town itself rather than the work across the whole borough. So from that aspect, it would be a good thing. Would there be too much duplication? I'm not sure. I guess we need to look at what happens on the Southborough Town Council and Paddock Wood Town Council, and probably the Cranbrook Parish Council to understand how the two layers of local authority work.
Okay. Tom, what's your view on this?
Well, I represent a ward where there are two parish councils, Cranbrook and Sissinghurst Parish Council and Benenden Parish Council. Yeah, I mean, there are different things that the parish council do compared to the borough council. Now, when I became leader, I was concerned that perhaps I'll start off, when I first got involved with the borough council, I thought I was representing an underrepresented part of the borough. You know, the borough council's focus was entirely on the town of Tunbridge Wells, and the rural areas were ignored. That's the sort of view from the eastern end of the borough. I've tried to change that. I've tried to make sure that we have a communities person on the cabinet who's responsible for the parished areas and coordinating matters with them, and that we have an economics development portfolio holder who's very much responsible for the town of Tunbridge Wells, which of course is where the economic drive for the borough comes from. Now, whether there should be a town council or not, I've really got no particular view. I mean, it would be, if it was a town council, it would be a very, very significant part of the borough. You know, we're possibly talking about well over half, perhaps 2/3 of the operation would relate to the town. I don't know whether that creates an uneasy relationship. I know town councils that do have uneasy relationships with their district council. For Tunbridge Wells, I'm sorry, I don't know what the answer is. All I've tried to do in the nearly a year that I've been leader is to make sure that I communicate with the town forum and the parish and the parishes, and to try to make sure that they all understand what the borough council is trying to achieve.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Shannon, any thoughts about whether Tunbridge Wells needs a town council?
Yes, of course. Greater power to the people generally, you know, as long as there's no undue influence on it from many other organisations, as long as they're the people who are on it are in the driving seat. And I think there could be a symbiotic relationship between the borough council and the town council. So yes, we would support that.
Ben.
So the Liberal Democrat philosophy is to devolve as much power away from the centre to the communities to empower them to make decisions. So we would be supportive of a town council. As a councillor, I think we all get frustrated with Kent County Council. So I'd really be interested to see how the town council and the borough council united together can make things happen that we want to make happen in Tunbridge Wells, with Kent County Council that seems on occasions, shall we say, to be the most obstructive body that we have to deal with as borough councillors. Case in point, the A26 cycle route from the town centre through St John's, Southborough and Tunbridge, which we desperately need in Tunbridge Wells.
Thank you, Ben. I'm just going to move the discussion on a bit. We talked a little bit about engagement now, and actually, I've been a member of the cross-party working group talking about the town hall, and actually, almost irrespective of the decision itself, I found the way of working really quite productive. How do you think we can continue that sort of that cross-party working, whether it's in the whether it's in working groups or whether it's it's a community engagement forum or whatever it is. Adrian, you referred to this earlier. Do you want to kick off and say how you would improve engagement within the town?
Well, we need to provide a bit of political space for these discussions to happen. I mean, people get very entrenched in their party political views. Speaking as a resident, before I got involved in local politics, it's not easy to deal with the council. We write emails asking for information. You end up doing things like freedom of information requests, and it's really hard to engage with essentially the cabinet, who keep a lot of information to themselves. So we need some form of reform. I mean, halfway listening to other people speak in that last question, halfway through I was thinking, do we actually need a council, or do we just need a better council that we've got now, a more open, more transparent one? But yeah, I think what you're referring to is my love of the Citizens' Assembly, which was promised under the Climate Declaration. It was Article 5, and Tom, your cabinet seems to have blocked that and is not going to deliver that for reasons hopefully you can explain in a minute. But they are essentially, they happened on a national level, happened in many towns actually, especially over Zoom now, makes them a lot cheaper, very cost effective. But you get people into, you get X number of residents in, you get some experts in, they spend a couple of days essentially asking the experts, talking around tables, and it's very collaborative, and they come up with a lot of very good ideas, very progressive ideas actually. When there's a very good BBC documentary on it, when you see what these forums come back with, it then gives politicians a lot of space to maneuver. So instead of sort of sitting here thinking, oh my God, no one's ever going to go for a cycle lane or for a whatever, then you've now got proof from these assemblies of what people want. And we can do that with the climate. Well, you promised to do that with the climate, Tom. I think several of you have voted for it, Ben, possibly Nick. It's there. I mean, the big decisions, they're a great way of unblocking the politics and providing that space for politicians to move around in. As I say, a lot cheaper now that Zoom's involved, and you wouldn't need to be a huge number of people. And I'm very much in favour.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. Nick, citizens' assemblies, or do we need some more technical software type driven approach? What do you think?
Probably a hybrid, a bit of both. I mean, I think one of the problems that I think the council has had for a number of years is the poor level of engagement with members of the with residents of the town. And we need to work at improving that, and that might be through a citizens' assembly. It might be through other means, and maybe it needs to be particular projects or particular things that we need to use some form of improved engagement, and some of that can be done through the use of technology, but also just making people being more available. I think locking the town hall, as it were, and preventing access perhaps was part of the original problem that engagement reduced. Doesn't really answer your question, but okay. We certainly need to.
That's fine. You can answer what answers you choose. Tom, what's your perspective on how we engage better?
Well, just since I've been leader of the council, the town hall's been empty with everyone working at home. So it certainly hasn't been locked. But no, I found the cross-party working group really refreshing. You concentrate on an idea, see how you can do it, work it out, thrash it out. And I think the outcome of the co-working arrangement in the town hall will be really good for the council. It'll be good it'll provide an income stream for the council. It'll bring more small businesses into town, more footfall into the centre of the town, and that in turn will be good for the local economy. So I think the discussion and the debate and the work that everyone did was really positive, and I think the outcome will also be really positive. I think the next thing that we want to work on is the Assembly Hall. We are committed to keeping the civic complex together in some way, but of course the Assembly Hall, as it's presently structured, is a drain on council resources. And we've got to work. We've got to work on how we're going to do something about that. Citizens Assembly. Yes, I voted for the climate emergency. I voted for the Citizens Assembly. What we're working on in terms of the climate emergency, I think, are things that probably the Citizens Assembly isn't going to be able to add value to. There's no objection to the principle of the Citizens Assembly. What all I've done in the and I started off doing it when I started looking at this and was receiving some emails on it just before Christmas, was to say, are we going to do it, and what does it involve? And we know what it involves. We've sought funding from outside. We just don't feel we're in a position to finance it at present. But no one's against the idea. I think these things work.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I can see that Mike's got his hand up, but I'm just going to come to Shannon next, and then I'll come to Mike, and then Ben. And I can see that Adrian wants to respond as well. So we'll go in that order. Shannon, do you want to?
Oh yes, sorry, mine next. Yes, we of course that's another thing with the People's Assembly, another aspect where people have more involvement within their local communities and dealing with larger issues. That also allows for the more specialised information that people are involved in their general lives, so that we don't end up going down that money drain that certain aspects come in when you don't rely on those specialised people and simply do it for politics or what have you. Talking about lack of financing for certain issues. Members might have the exact figure, but I think just the planning alone for that Calverley Park project cost about 10 million, was it? And now we're finding a gap of 500,000 for the Amelia Scott Centre. So definitely needs to rely more on the logic of the general population and their involvement in certain issues.
Okay. Mike, and then I'll come to Ben and Adrian.
Thank you. Yeah, we fully support citizens' assemblies, and it was a Labour proposal as part of the motion that was voted on 2 years ago. And actually, I find it quite distressing to hear that Tom says that they voted for something and then decided it wasn't worth doing. That's not how to run a council. And when it comes to finances, like Shannon said, the wasted money that we've seen and the ridiculous overspends on the Amelia Scott means that if those things didn't happen, we would be able to afford luxuries like engaging with the public. On cross-party working, it's something that Labour fully support and something that we'll continue to do. But we do need new leaders to actually drive things forward and make things happen. And then just back to engagement. Our Labour councillors are rooted in their communities and they're always engaging with the residents of the wards, and that's obviously a very effective way of finding out what people want.
Thank you. Ben.
Thank you. So the Liberal Democrats worked really well together with the other parties, and I think we need to recall that the people that were on that cross-working group party. We had the Conservative leader, we had the Labour leader, we had the Tunbridge Wells Alliance leader, and we had from our group our deputy leader, Mark Ellis, councillor in St John's. And that was a priority we gave it. Mark kindly took time off work because we both worked during the daytime to do it. And I think that was a really productive time. I think if we contrast that with how Calverley Square was done, when the Conservatives had an overwhelming majority, they didn't need to talk to other people because they had the numbers to vote anything through. So the fact that we're now into no overall control lends itself to more cross-party working, which is probably more innate in places like Germany and the Scandinavian countries, where you have coalition administrations locally as well as nationally. So I think that those people who were involved in that should be proud that they came together and did a really good job at finding a way forward in less than a year. So, you know, the discussion started after the May elections last year, if I remember correctly, and that was a great achievement. In terms of engagement, the best part of being a councillor is knocking on doors in wherever you're knocking, and everybody has got a different view, neighbour to neighbour, even household to household. Different people who you go into town at different times of day within the same household will tell you completely different things. So personally, I have a rule, and lots of our Lib Dem councillors and candidates, for every hour that we spend in the council meeting, we offset that by 2 hours on the doorstep. So Adrian, if we assume an hour and a half tonight, all right, then I will be spending 3 hours on the doorstep talking to residents about that. And last summer I did over 2,000 doors in Tunbridge Wells, and that's how I engage. And if after May we have a change of administration and I'm the council leader, then I would still want to go out there and knock on doors to talk to residents and engage them. I think if things are important to people, okay, they will come forward and start interacting with councillors. I think we have to go out there and make the first move, because people are busy. You know, an issue I picked up on last week on the doorstep, somebody's been having to put up with something for 18 months and didn't really know who to talk to. And then suddenly councillor pops up and we're working through a fly tipping issue that happens on quite a regular basis.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Adrian, I think you wanted to come back on something.
Yes, it's to Tom, really. I regard it back, unsurprisingly, Citizens' Assembly. Well, when are you anticipating this happening then, if it's not a case of money? Because I've been following this, well, ever since I read the climate emergency about 18 months ago. And the excuses seem to change, to be honest, just drags out. I know the current one seems to be money, but as Mike rightly said, this has been promised. It is the most pressing issue of our time. And you aren't spending what in council terms is a very small amount of money. I know your colleagues have bandied around 3-figure sums, but they've got that from the National Assembly. That was for flying people to London and putting them up in London hotels. A Tunbridge Wells run over Zoom, it is going to be nowhere near that amount of money. In terms of council expenditure, it would be incredibly small. I would imagine that we've probably spent more money avoiding this than actually doing it. So I would put it to you that you could find the money if you wanted to.
Tom?
We are presently, we've just come through 2 and a bit years of pandemic. We've had a huge knock to our income. We've been helped out to the extent of about 70% of that by government. On the climate, our focus, is on our climate emissions, our carbon emissions from our buildings. So we've measured them. We know where they come from. We know what we're going to do about it. We have a group of property experts who are dealing with it. We are applying for funding from whatever source we can to address them. We've been quite successful with some applications. We have a carbon descent plan to move down to net zero. Wider than that, of course, I've spoken to the Lord Deben Climate Committee. What's needed, and we've talked about what's needed for local authorities in terms of planning authority. We'd like to have more power to demand higher standards of build. That would help on new buildings. It doesn't help on your core. It doesn't help on the your existing housing stock. I think we were all a little disappointed that more was not done in the government's recent announcement on insulation and where energy could be saved by contributing to better energy saving measures. I think the focus as a result of the war in Ukraine has now sort of moved to energy security and a little bit away from some of the insulation issues that I think that we all thought were more important before that war started. But the council is through buying green electricity, through a lot of the energy saving measures that have been undertaken, has reduced its carbon emissions by 50%. That in itself is significant, and we're working on moving down on our carbon descent plan to the rest. The issues like the public engagement that we're undertaking, the school engagements that we're following, are bringing this issue to a head. COP26 did it. I mean, a few years ago, probably there were climate deniers. Well, there isn't anyone who's a climate denier now. We're all working to try and reduce carbon emissions and to do what we can. And what we don't think we can do in the next few months is to put on a citizens' assembly, because we actually don't think it's going to help us in any of the carbon reduction measures that we're already planning.
Okay, so I'm just going to move on from the Citizens' Assembly specific now, just to talk a little bit more about climate. And here I'm told I've got to give a plug for the Friends of the Earth Hustings, which is happening in person on the 26th of April. It's in King Charles the Martyr Church Hall. I think it's at 7. Actually, I don't know what time it is. So I better not say it, but we'll send that out afterwards. Anyway, you're all welcome to go. And I guess a lot of the focus there will be on carbon. But I just want to raise one specific point around carbon reduction, and that's on travel and transport. We know that the way Tunbridge Wells currently operates, that the amount of traffic in the town is causing congestion. It's not just congestion; it's also heavily polluted in places. Just last week, we had somebody knocked down on Mount Pleasant. Another pedestrian knocked down on Mount Pleasant by someone on a motorbike. How can we actually make Tunbridge Wells truly more pleasant? Not Mount Pleasant, but more pleasant and safer for those that choose to travel on foot or on a bike. Nick, let me ask you first.
I've spent the day travelling around the town on my bicycle today and yesterday, and often use it if I'm having to go further than a five-minute walk. And some roads are not pleasant in the town centre, and leaving the town centre to go to neighbouring villages. So there's a lot we need to do to make it feel safer for people who cycle. Having cycled a lot, I'm fairly confident, but there are some roads I don't want to go on. So we do need to push more to encourage people to cycle and to give them safer routes. And people are not going to get on a bicycle unless they feel safe. So there's a lot of work to do on that still. And I guess other things are, removing some of the traffic, and some of that is through better buses. Now, the Borough Council isn't responsible for the buses. The Kent County Council is, and there've been a number of cuts to bus routes. Some have been saved, some have gone. And there's a whole piece about if people knew when buses ran, and this is where we need the electronic readouts or apps on phones but not everybody uses apps on phones so that people know when the next bus is running or due to arrive. That can encourage people to use them. But one of the problems we have with public transport is, but you're lucky if a bus runs more than once an hour, and most people are not willing to wait more than 5 to 10 minutes. So we need to rethink some of the transport options and make active travel safer.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Tom, what's the answer from the climate perspective in particular? Is it active travel? Is it buses? What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? Because KCC seems to be not keen on coughing up the money that for the western part of the county.
Yeah, I think the A26 was a real disappointment to the Borough Council. We worked hard on the plans. We'd lobbied for the funding, and to have it then decreed by the Highways Authority that it couldn't be made safe was a bitter pill. So no, we are genuinely keen on active travel. The active travel scheme that came up as part of the COVID issues was what we've used for the high street, and we're waiting for the next government release of active travel funds. I mean, the one thing that we do have are cycle plans, and so hopefully that when there's some funding available, we can dust off a scheme and try and make sure that it does conform to the active travel release. Buses. I mean, it was last October, I think, and I was invited to the War Memorial for the 100th anniversary of the British Legion. They didn't stop the traffic going past the War Memorial, and during the sort of 2-minute silence, one observed empty buses belching fumes as they drove by, and you wondered where they were and what they were doing and where they were going. With David Scott, we've been to see the operation they run in Sevenoaks, which is a sort of hybrid between a taxi service and a bus service. It's a sort of bus on call. So you don't wait at a bus stop. You can actually call the bus to your home. And it doesn't drop you off at a bus stop. It drops you off where you want to go. And so operating on a sort of circular basis from around the town, there's a possibility of having a really green and clean bus service that people can call up to get to take and for where they want to go. I think it has a lot of merits. We've talked to Kent County Council about it. It's certainly a scheme that I think has got real legs, and has shown that it works in Sevenoaks, and it's shown it works in Rye. And I think that to have such a scheme in Tunbridge Wells would be really good. I think it would be green, it would be clean. You'd have the vehicle would be electric. We've looked at some options on that. There is a lot to do in public transport, because quite obviously, the sort of bus service that we have at present is not delivering what users need.
Shannon, how would you come back on that?
Well, I'd agree with some of the comments speakers have made. You never do enough to support the public transport, especially the buses, and encouraging people to cycle. We'd understand that once if we were to get into the council, we'd understand things a lot more clearly compared with current speakers here who have served on the council, currently serving on the council. But we also need to remember that Tunbridge Wells isn't alone in this global issue. We're part of a wider nation and the world. And we need to understand that it's the current system that is fueling this unhealthy diet of reliance on fossil fuels and the like. And if we were to give greater power to the general public in deciding these matters, such as in a people forum, then they would understand these issues and be able to make the appropriate decisions that should be followed.
Thank you. I've sort of got out of order here. I don't know what's going on, but I asked Mike Tapp to speak next, and then Ben.
Thanks, Adrian. I think in general, looking at climate change with the council, there's far too much offsetting and not enough reduction, and that's a big problem. And there's a lot more that can be done. Cycle routes to begin with, it shouldn't be this difficult. Just getting them put in should not be such a challenge. And then when they do put them in, putting in flimsy orange ones that get knocked down by lorries just will not suffice. I'm sure other councils don't have such challenges, just putting in a cycle route. More pedestrianised areas will obviously help because it will reduce the emissions in the town centre. And also I think it encourages people to walk in general because it's a nice environment which is bustling and exciting to be in. We need cheaper buses. That's very important. And I don't think, Tom, we can't judge how much our buses are used by one glance when you've visited the town centre. That needs an in-depth study. And I can assure you there's people out in the villages and on the edges of the town, many who aren't quite as mobile, who rely on these bus services, and many can't afford to use them and get into town, and it's an absolute tragedy. And that really does need to be addressed. And then the final point that I'd like to make is around encouraging active travel. The City Council in Brighton have an app, active travel app, where you essentially rack up points for the distances that you're walking or cycling, and then those points can be used with local businesses for discounts. So you get a slightly cheaper coffee if you've got 200 points, which meant you walked into town, and that's a really encouraging scheme. And it's the sort of thing that a contractor could come in and do for the council and get people walking more.
Supposed to be impartial, but it sounds like a good idea. Sorry. So who was I going to come to next? Ben, and then Adrian.
Thank you. So we want a town centre that we're proud of, so that families and friends can have fun in Tunbridge Wells. And at the moment, I think making active travel happen in Tunbridge Wells would be a key ingredient to achieving that aim. The problem with Tunbridge Wells at the moment is it's just one big car park, with congestion after congestion after congestion all time round. So the Liberal Democrats are very clear. We want 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in the town, blanket except for the main roads. The reason why is that studies show that if you lower the speed, people feel safer and start switching modes of transport. Okay, it's called evaporation. One of the things that I'm particularly keen, because I use it every day during the summer, is I cycle up St John's Road on my way to work, which is 25 miles away. I recently took my 12-year-old son on one of those Santander bikes in London, and it was perfectly safe because it was well protected from traffic. But then I decided to go a little bit more extreme and go round Trafalgar Square. If you know, at the bottom of Whitehall, at the top of Whitehall, there is a roundabout on Trafalgar Square. My 12-year-old son felt comfortable on there without being on a protected cycle lane, because the cars and the traffic had changed their behaviour to accept that he was an equal road user. And that's one of the things we want to do as Tunbridge Wells Liberal Democrats. So the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit would work. The cycle lane, the frustration with the cycle lane, there's one person in Tunbridge Wells who is blocking the building of the A26. And I say that, I've done my research, I know exactly what's happening on this one. Okay, it is a Kent County councillor for Tunbridge Wells North, who used to work for the petrol industry, who is blocking the plan to build a protected cycle route all the way from St John's up to Tunbridge, which is one of the most congested roads on the A26. One of the excuses that's given is that you can't have an A road which has a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. That's nonsense. If you go to Westerham near Sevenoaks, they have the A25 and it's there. Another thing we're very keen on is, you may remember,
sorry, can I just cut you off, Ben, because I really need to move to Adrian, if that's all right, and then because I've got a couple more questions which I want to get through, and I want to finish before 8:30 if I can, before an hour and a half rather. Adrian.
Well, yeah, I'll be brief, but I'm a cyclist myself. I cycle 3 out of 5 days to work, carrying quite a bit of heavy gardening kit, and it's completely doable, although it is unpleasant. It is not nice. It pains me to say, I used to cycle to school many years ago, but I wouldn't put my daughter on a bike in Tunbridge Wells and let her go off on her own. It's just not safe. And so we've got this chicken and egg situation where people don't want to get out of their cars because it's not pleasant. But there are plenty of ways around this. It's not rocket science. A simple bit of Googling will show you things like low traffic networks and neighborhoods, things like car clubs, things like cycle bike hire that will all take cars off. And it's happy to see the majority of people here generally sort of understanding that what we need is less traffic on the roads. And the public, I believe, you look at support, polls for this, and people want these green solutions. This is not, I know that we've got online culture wars about this, etc. But with reality, people want clean air to breathe. They want a nice road to walk down. They want these solutions. I mean, and again, we see a general agreement here, and I'm in agreement with this. It does seem to be largely Kent County Council that seem to be the big stumbling block here. I think I see that a lot in what I hear. I mean, my question again would be to Tom, what lobbying are we doing? What pressure are you putting on your Conservative colleagues to make this happen?
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Ben, if you don't mind, I'm just going to move on because I just want to quickly cover a couple of other topics. One is that I was really quite shocked by how unsafe women in particular feel in Tunbridge Wells, particularly after dark, but actually not just after dark. And I've had experience from my daughters who tell me the same thing. Actually, they don't feel safe in Tunbridge Wells, which I think is absolute tragedy. Tom, what can we do about? What can the Borough Council do about this? I know it's not just a Borough Council thing, but what can we do about that?
Well, primarily, it's safety is a policing issue, and we do keep in very close contact with the police. The issue is, well, firstly, the statistics show that Tunbridge Wells is one of the safest places in the southeast. It's certainly one of the safest places in Kent. But it's not about the statistics. It's about how people feel. So if people feel unsafe, the police have introduced a reporting tool so that they can say where they feel unsafe and why they feel unsafe. We've had an element of success with Major York's Road, where the undergrowth has been cleared back so that no longer do people, as they walk along the pavement, think that someone is going to jump out. The undergrowth we've had cleared, and the Police and Crime Commissioner helped with the funding, and they pulled it back 10 yards towards the trees, and it does make people feel safer. That, I think, is the sort of thing that we can do. And so working with the police, it's about identifying where people feel unsafe and seeing what we can actually do about it. The other issue on safety, I think, occurs in bars, and we had these incidents involving stabbing, and we withdrew the license because there wasn't the appropriate CCTV coverage, wasn't the appropriate security for people going in there, and so we do have some licensing powers for premises where we can enforce standards of oversight. Okay,
thank you very much. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw this open. Actually, if anybody else would like to comment, just so Mike and then Ben.
Thanks, Adrian. I have a history in law enforcement, so I've got a pretty good understanding of these issues. Violent crime in Tunbridge Wells is up. Sexual assaults are up. When I wrote a letter to the Times of Tunbridge Wells about this, the following week, a Conservative councillor attacked me for writing it. And I think that really demonstrates how seriously the Conservatives are taking this. I also run a crime watch group on Facebook, which is well worth joining. I ran a poll on there, and it was unanimous that people feel less safe in our town at the moment. It's unacceptable. Today I spoke with a lady from St John's, and she lives near to St John's Wreck. And she told me that even during the day, there's mothers who have to sit further away from their children who are playing in the sandpits because they feel unsafe for some of the things that are going on there. Now, they used to have a park warden, but due to council cuts, that person doesn't go there anymore. And that's had a massive impact on the community. So it's little things like that, that sort of neglect that has a big impact. And obviously there's the more obvious answers like better lighting, CCTV, and then more national problems like more police on the streets to deal with the problems.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for being brief. Ben.
Thank you. So the council can definitely do things to make women feel safer in Tunbridge Wells. One of the things the Liberal Democrats stopped 4 or 5 years ago was the Conservatives switching off the live CCTV monitoring in the town centre. Everything that would have happened after the switch off would have been looked at on videotapes after the offence had been caused. Now, as a Liberal who doesn't like intrusion in private life, defending the use of CCTV tells you how much people value it to make them feel safer. The other thing the council can definitely do, and that is my colleague in St James's ward, Councillor Rob Wormington, is pushing the council to install lighting in Grosvenor Hilbert Park. It is a well-used after dark because it's on the commuter path to residential areas in St James's. We are being obstructed by so-called council policies that historically have been in place. We want to put lighting all the way along the lake, all the way across to St John's and to Hilbert Road and those kind of places. So the council can definitely do practical things. And one of the things we want to do as a Liberal Democrat administration in May, if that happens, is look at the issue of making that safer and using Section 106 contributions, which is money that a developer has to contribute when they build new properties in a local area. We want to look at that kind of money, and there's a lot of money sloshing about there to use that money to do something about making women and girls feel safer in Tunbridge Wells. So the council can definitely do more in partnership with other organisations.
Shannon.
Hello, yes. Whilst I've been out campaigning during the election, this is one of the issues that's come up several times from women that are feeling unsafe about these issues, not only in Tunbridge Wells, but along the train lines as well, coming into Tunbridge Wells with issues of unwanted attentions. And, it also extends to the number of spikings we've had in Tunbridge Wells in the various bars. I believe one of them, I won't name them, was closed down due to the number that happened in one night being so extreme. And we've got to wonder what has caused this. It hasn't happened overnight, of course. It's perhaps due to sustained cuts of certain services, of access to certain things. And we understand also that the majority of the police force isn't situated in Tunbridge Wells, it comes from Tunbridge. That's obviously hardly helpful for the local people if they would have to wait for a considerable time when those things happen in an instant, as well as the problems of... No, sorry, that's the end of that.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to do now, because we're nearly at the end, rather than actually asking you to sum up, I'm just going to ask you to say 1 minute on a couple of questions. One is, what practical steps do you think you can take to promote the Spa Town heritage of Royal Tunbridge Wells? And I note that the Emilia Scott is due to open. The Emilia Scott is due to open in 7 days' time. what exhibit or event do you most look forward to seeing there? You are allowed, I mean, you don't have to say this, but you could say, who would you like to see in the museum? So who shall I ask first? Adrian Thorne, you can go first.
Can I have any character I like visiting?
Well, not on this screen, no.
Well, obviously I was going to go for Attenborough or someone like that, but I'm most looking forward to the gardening work that they're doing there. Obviously there's going to be a lot of eco-friendly stuff, and there is going to be an internal what's the word, courtyard, that's going to have a lot of potting and stuff doing in there. I'm looking forward to seeing the museum exhibits up again as well. I miss the museum. It's well worthwhile. In terms of promoting the spa heritage, I thought we were going to talk about water in the wells at some point, but
yes, that's it.
Yes, exactly. I think the most practical thing we can do is to make the town more appealing, which is clean and safe. I know that's not exactly a spa heritage, but people will come somewhere that's clean and safe, and that's a practical thing.
Okay,
thank you very much.
I'm just going to go around in the order I see you on the screen. So Ben, you're next.
I think the Amelia Scott is going to be a great addition to Tunbridge Wells, and I can't wait for it to open. I think that was one project that, to be fair to the current administration, they've got right, although it's been, far more expensive than would, and that's why we've supported it from the start. In terms of exhibit, I'm really looking forward to seeing lots of people using the library and just diving into a book. And I try and encourage my students at school to just be curious, to pick up a book and just have a read. Meanwhile, personally, I'm going to nip off and have a look at the model railway layout that's in the room planned downstairs, because I do like a railway, not steam, because I'm not so keen on steam, because it's not very green, and I'm too young to remember steam engines, but I'm looking forward to that. In terms of the spa heritage, I think we need to recognise that Tunbridge Wells is not a Bath, a Bristol or a Harrogate, and I don't mean that to belittle the town. We are a middling town in the commuter belt of one of the mega cities in the world, and I think anything that can make Tunbridge Wells more attractive will help to bring people to the town. Whether it's a nice fountain, I mean the spring in the Pantiles it could do with a nice lick of paint and a bit of making it look a bit more loved. That would help. But we've got lots of ideas, and can I encourage all of your listeners, all of your viewers, to go on our website, twlibdems.org.uk, to find out our 6 to fix for Tunbridge Wells.
Very good. Well done. I'm glad you got that in. Well, Tom, you're next on my screen.
The spring in the Pantiles, the Chalybeate spring, has just had a planning permission approved to significantly upgrade it. I think that'll be exciting. The Dandara project at the bottom of the Pantiles, that has come with a water feature, and I think that quite a lot of other plans as they come forward, will come with water features, and that's very much encouraged by Water in the Wells, which I think has to be applauded. So that's the spa town. What was the other part of your question, Adrian?
Amelia Scott, who are you looking forward to seeing in the museum?
The Amelia Scott, you'll be wowed by it. It really is a terrific addition to the town. I think the thing that probably everyone will really want to fall for is the children's library. It'll be great. Take your kids.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you. I really enjoy museums. My wife does probably more than me, so we'll definitely be visiting there. I didn't realise there's a train exhibition, Ben. And that's exciting for one of our MPs, Peter Kyle, who is a self-confessed train geek, and he's actually coming up this weekend to visit. So hopefully we'll be able to take him there in the future. And then in terms of promoting the town, well, everything I've talked about and in terms of improving, but essentially we need people that really want to serve the town to make it better. Shadi in Sherwood, she's been an NHS doctor for 14 years, and she'll be absolutely dedicated. Ray in Paddock Wood, he's been serving in the town council for a long time, he's lived there for decades. We've got Alan Lewis in Southbourne Highbrooms, who's one of our finest councillors. So really, for me, it's about the residents voting for Labour councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Shannon, and then it'll be Nick.
I'd only reiterate what other people have said about the spa itself. You know, what's been said is said, but certainly a very good thing now that we're having not only a new library, but we're not losing one, as we see all across the country. So we're very lucky for that. I'd certainly welcome that and be interested in going there and seeing what's about.
Thank you. Nick, who do you want to see in the museum?
Oh gosh, I was thinking Subbuteo, but actually I want to see all of it. But it'd be good to see some of the local history items in there. And being someone who enjoys food and drink, the cafe, because I think that'll actually be great for helping people to sort of linger in the building, use the library more, and visit more of the museum pieces. Okay,
Thank you very much, everyone, for all your answers and for your good humour as well. It's been a robust debate, but hopefully people have got a good idea about what you're all about and your party's all about. And all I can say is, you know, to all the people who are listening or are going to listen to this, whatever you think, please go and vote for someone, because that's the most important thing. Actually, is that people participate in these elections, and we get good turnouts, and turnouts often in local elections are shockingly low, and they shouldn't, because actually they're the things which matter most to all of us. So please go and vote in the May local elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you for chairing. Thanks for chairing, Adrian.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks for chairing. Sorry,